Hi, my name is Brian Wood. I'm the Technical Communications and Outreach Manager at Wolfram. I'm here today with one of our senior software engineers, Todd Reichert, and Todd is going to give us a look at his process for exploring ETL with the Wolfram language. How you doing today, Todd?
Good. How are you?
Good, excellent. Let's start with a little bit of background. What exactly is ETL, and kind of what got you into this project?
Well, the actual project was, hey, we need to get some analytics out of a log file.
Mhm.
Um, and from that, I just kind of dug in and kind of put myself in the box of using Wolfram technologies as much as I could during this process. And then the thing that I realized after I completed it was that I had done something very synonymous with what the enterprise world calls ETL.
Gotcha. So, so what exactly, when people refer to ETL, what exactly is it that they mean?
You want to go ahead and start sharing? That's part of
Oh,
my
yeah,
presentation here
yeah,
if we
go
want to
ahead.
jump in.
Let's jump right in.
Okay. So, so as you alluded to, as I alluded to, this background is, what kind of kicked it all off for us, kicked it all off for me. And you asked about what ETL is. Simply put, it's extract data, transpose it, manipulate it to whatever needs you need, and then load it into a database. And then
So I
go
can't help
ahead.
but notice you have database sort of in quotes there. Is that sort of to imply that it's whatever data structure or data?
Exactly.
Okay,
Yeah.
that makes
Yeah.
sense.
And so, the next thing that I have here is the Wikipedia page. And I went and read the Wikipedia page to make sure that I wasn't making things up, but
Sure.
what I did was very much in line with what that is. And ETL is a tool that's been, used for data warehousing for years and data
Right.
warehouse reporting and things like that. And so that's ETL. So.
All right. So what can you kind of guide us through what it is that you actually did, just sort of
Yeah.
step by step to do this ETL?
So the first thing you do is you figure out how to extract data. So my particular data was coming from log files. So if you look at the example log file there, it has the date and a sequential number on it. It had 1 to 30,000 records in it. Each day contained, I get about 100 files for each day. And what it turned out was the data contained a lot of noise,
Uh,
that I had to, you know, this is, this is where I had to go into design because if I was to just load up all of these log files into a database, the database would just get huge. But when
mhm.
it turned out was I had to look forward and go, what analytics are they wanting? And that's where I figured out what the noise was. And then I figured out how to, um, in the next step, the transpose, I'll talk about how I avoid the noise. But, for this extract, it sounds pretty darn simple. You think you'd open up a file and you'd process it. Well, it, some of the things that Wolfram Language did that, just kind of opened the doors for me on this one was something as simple as the dates. In other words, when my scheduled job runs at night, I need to know what today's date is and yesterday's date is. So, I was able to use Wolfram Language's yesterday. I mean, that makes it, one, it's easy to to see and
Yeah,
read,
yeah, that's my
so
favorite part about that.
yeah. And so it was like, so I was able to figure out, what log files do I need to process today? So the dates. Okay, great. Well, now I take that pattern, so now I have a pattern, a file name pattern that I know I need. I can use Wolfram Language's command file names to go out to a directory, say, here's the pattern with the dates, and give me this list of files. Great. Okay, next thing that came along that was like, uh-oh, there's zipped files. Well, you can't read a zipped file. Wolfram Language actually has a command called extract archive. And, it takes a file, unzips it, puts it in a temporary directory for you. Great. Now I'm ready to go. Now my extract, is kind of ready to go, raring to go. And as a quick side note, the Wolfram Language also has a nice delete file. So once again, I had this list of files sitting in a temporary directory that when everything's all said and done, I'm done processing, I just loop over with delete file over this list of the files that got, unzipped. So the extract went really smoothly, more so than, that's typically not something you would maybe, a lot of programmers would step outside of a language. They would use more system-y type
Right.
things to do that, but
Yeah.
Wolfram Language was able to do that.
Yeah, it's almost I appreciate a lot of the file based functions that are in the Wolfram language nowadays, and I find that you almost want to skip over the command line step. You're
Yeah.
sort of like, well, I can do this right in my notebook, so why not?
Yeah.
I know you were mentioning patterns for like each file name sort of falls into a particular pattern. So is that you're talking about string patterns that you used for sort of just
Yeah.
matching those file names?
Yeah. So basically I passed into the file names command, here's that standard static prefix, and then here's this
Mm-hmm.
dynamic date. And, getting that list of files, like I say, was typically something that I would have done outside of Wolfram language before I would have thought about going
Right.
to Wolfram language. And like I say, so that was a nice, as I dug into this and put myself into that, nope, I'm going to use Wolfram language, it just kept, I was able to stay in there the whole time. Every time I'd hit that challenge point, I was able to dig around and yep, I can find a function that can help me.
Yeah. Yep.
So you ready for transpose?
Yeah. Let's
All
see.
right.
Let's talk about transpose.
Okay, so now transpose. Unfortunately, this is a smallish looking slide, but this is where all of the good stuff happens. This is where, as I mentioned before, very noisy data. It had a lot of entries into it that was just to these like static files that we really don't care about. We don't care about tracking those. So I was able to once again, use Wolfram language and all of its capabilities to just take that noise, put it to the side. And there's actually a second type of noise that I had to minorly keep too. So, once again, Wolfram language handled that like a champ too, so, I had 3 degrees. I had noise, ignore. I had noise that I wanted to kind of keep a little bit of track of. And then I had the stuff that I really wanted to keep track of. So, Wolfram language did that nice and smoothly. But then in the meantime too, as this slide points out too, within this data, there was 2 things for sure. IP address. IP address doesn't tell you much, but there's tools out there that you can take an IP address and find out like country information
Right.
from. And so, Wolfram language naturally has that ability to get that information. And then the user agent field, if I can say, there's going to be another talk about user agent field that I dig deeper into how we solved that one, or how I solved that one. So the places, during this transpose that, Wolfram language, like say the pattern matching and the string functions, whenever you're getting data and you're prepping it for a database, you have to have strong string functions. You have to have the ability to twist and turn the data however you need. There was another great aspect, as I'm loading this, we're talking about on a daily basis, 100,000 records maybe. You don't want to keep doing lookups every time. So within the processing, as soon as I run across something that I have to do a lookup or a little extra work for, I do the work and then I cache it. And so Wolfram language made it really easy for me to keep caches during this processing, thus speeding it up too. Initially when I talked about earlier, just kind of throwing everything in, it turned out to be like a 24-hour process. Uh-huh. It's like, that's not going to work, and so, so, I, through some design engineering, you get it down to, 20 minutes. Once again, a lot of this stuff that I do too is kind of a work in progress, but you kind of reach a point of diminishing returns on your code, to where it's like, okay, it's running good enough, we can get it into production. Whenever it's running at 1 a.m., it doesn't matter whether it's running 2 minutes or 20 minutes.
Right.
At the moment, in the future, and that's what's nice. Once again, Wolfram language, I was able to consistently, as I found these unacceptable timeframes, I was able to continue to dig down and dig deeper and continue to get that. And then the last bullet point here was kind of what I alluded to with the IP address, Wolfram language, in the middle of this transpose, I have this piece of data, but I need some information about it. Ooh, I need to go out to the internet, or I need to make a web call. to some place, get some information, boom, it's back. So, that was all
Yeah.
naturally built into it.
So I feel compelled to ask, just because you mentioned IP address, because there are sort of two different classes of the string versus the text functions in the Wolfram language. Did you get any use out of things like text contents or anything like that, where because there that will search for the IP address as an object rather than writing out a string pattern? Do you know what I'm talking about?
Mm,
I may be the mark here with this comment.
no, I'm the I mean, as far as the IP address, it had to be fairly a quick lookup. So that was part of,
Gotcha. Okay.
I can't utilize slow services. So, that was part
Okay.
of it,
Yeah.
so yeah.
Yeah. I was just curious because it's the difference between saying, find me an IP address and, okay, find me something that matches, these digits with a dot, then another set of digits with a dot, then, actually
Oh,
sort
no,
of writing
no.
out
Yeah.
manually the IP address.
Yeah, I mean, I was able to just use it as a string. I didn't actually,
Yeah. Yeah.
the log files actually come in a very structured format. So I was able to just go out there and,
Okay. Yeah.
yeah, it was kind of like position 4 is the IP address. Boom.
Gotcha. Yeah.
So
That
I
makes it
really did. I
easier when
didn't have
it's,
to go searching for it or anything. So
yeah. Okay. That makes sense. Cool. So then, what's the final step here then?
so the final step is load. That one's even less interesting. Because really it's just a matter of now transpose does all of that work to get your data primed. Really all that you're doing is just shoving it into, in my case, SQL commands to get into the database. But once again, I didn't have to leave. I didn't have to leave my preferred language. I was able to use the database link technologies that Wolfram Language has built into it to get that data loaded up in a very easy fashion. And as you were alluding to too, string and date functions came in a heck of a lot of use here, because your chosen data base or wherever you store your data, most likely they're going to store dates in their own type of fashion. So
Always.
having
Yep.
that ability with Wolfram Language, which has a large set of date capabilities, I was able to dig in, find, basically have my date, which looks, oh, it's acceptable, but twist it and turn it into the proper format for the database I was using. So
Yeah. Yeah. And that's, I do find that the language recognizes almost any date format where you sort
yeah,
of, it'll figure it out for you.
yes,
So,
and so so that was load. So that's ETL. That's that's what the people pay lots of money for ETL tools. And I was able to do this all within the Wolfram language. Um, this next slide here I want to talk about is the reporting. So I just kind of wanted to bookend that's kind of the end of ETL.
right.
The aspect I want to bring up next is reporting, which does kind of naturally grow into the next step. A lot of times ETLs are connected with data warehouses,
Yeah. Yeah.
which then in turn do reporting. So um, the initial need for reporting for me was I set this thing up on my laptop and used notebooks to do the whole thing. So I was used to seeing my daily processing in a very pretty way at the end. It was easy to read and easy to see when something went aflutter. And so I was like, well, Wolfram Language has templating, it has reporting. So I started researching, how do I use a template? Because, I'm not doing anything too fancy here. It's just a
Yeah.
matter of reporting, hey, this log file had these results out of it. And so I researched reporting and templates, and it just worked. I believe I talked about this in the next few, in another slide, but where I talk about how I moved this to a server, and the convenience of the notebook, doing something like reporting, wasn't going to work on the server, so I had to refactor it for that. but anyway, yeah, like say, so reporting and templating just worked out great. I was able to replicate what I did on the notebook on the server real easy. And then really to bring this thing full circle, we, I have these web logs. I've investigated them, created a data design, everything. Now it's the whole point of this whole thing. They want a weekly report that kind of tells, hey, what's going on in these log files. So once again, I developed the weekly report on my desktop, doing everything by hand. Decided, realized, hey, I can use this reporting and this templating. Moved it over to the server, pull all the data out, put it into the template, and now this daily processing happens at 1 a.m. when I'm well asleep. and on Tuesdays it does a weekly report, and it all gets sent to me, in an email. And like
Nice.
I say, and I pretty much stayed all within the Wolfram Language box. So that was reporting. So do you have any questions there before I jump into my other?
Oh, I was just curious if you could give a kind of an overview of the kinds of things that you'd put in one of those reports, just to give people an idea of
Sure.
the depth of the thing.
So I think it's okay to share. Basically, we're wanting to know who's down, what products are getting downloaded. I don't think that's proprietary to share. I don't think it's wrong for us to want to know who's down, what products are getting downloaded. So really that's what I'm doing. I'm downloading, I'm monitoring the logs for people downloading products. But then within the product, you want to know what, the product, the version, and the platform. And so simple reporting really wouldn't give that to you, because I kind of got to extract that platform and version from the path sometimes that the people take to get to the file. So a lot of that, I'm able to track bandwidth, for a given day, like how fast were we running. With this user agent analysis, we're able to see what browsers people are using. Things like that. So it's things like that. And then basically, as I move forward, what I'm hoping is to move beyond the report and into something a little bit more dynamic for my users, which once again, the ETL gets the data in there. I'll maybe have a few static reports, but the next step for me will be to create some sort of dynamic UI.
Right on.
So people can ask, about a product in a specific version and say, hey, how's the downloads of this thing going?
Yeah, that would be. I think anybody would agree that that's a pretty convenient interface for sort of keeping track of those kinds of things.
Yeah. So the kind of the neat thing I did want to kind of really drive home with what I also did here was I did all of this on my local laptop. And, I got my proof of concept working. I got my report kind of okayed, and then I just started moving it over to a server. I work on a Mac laptop, and so I got my OS. I got my terminal, behind me, and I moved it over to a Linux-based server where I'm doing this again. And it just, I'm not going to say it didn't just flow over straight, but really it was really just more formatting. It didn't. I didn't have to change any of my code. I didn't have to change any of my design. I really just had to reformat it, from running things interactively on the notebook to running things in packages and functions, on Linux. And so, I was, this was something I really hadn't had a chance to do yet in my career here at Wolfram. And I've just been extremely impressed with, the ability to run Wolfram Language on the Linux command line, Unix command line. It's been on par with every other Unix power tool out there that I've ever used. And like I say, I'm staying all pretty much within the Wolfram Language box. At the ends there may be a little bit of standard Unix stuff, but basically that whole meat of that process is within that Wolfram Language. And so I've been very very impressed and hopeful that I'm going to continue down that path. So
yeah, and that's almost even more convenient in some ways, that the fact that you can stick those Wolfram language expressions and pieces of code sort of in the middle of your Linux command line kind of workflow, and it just does what it does, and you don't have to mess with changing your code around or anything like that.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, anybody who's interested in Linux Mathematica on the Linux command line, I highly it's worth the investment of time if you're a Unix junkie.
Yeah, and if anyone watching this hasn't heard of it, Wolfram Script is a nice way to sort of start playing around with that. You can pretty much run any Wolfram command from just about any command line, actually.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we're just about out of time here.
Okay.
So go ahead and give us your final thoughts here.
Yeah, final thoughts is, as I mentioned before, it's still a work in progress. But it solved the problem I had. I would run across a little hitch, which any technology, any language I've ever learned in the past, you get over it, and the problem, some languages you don't get over it. I was able to get over everything, in from start to end. I never had to hop out and do anything else, use another technology. As I was saying before, Wolfram Language on Linux, hopefully, a video like this or more common, maybe ways to get people interested in Wolfram on Linux command line, could be a good on-ramp for a lot of enterprise customers, especially those that maybe already have access to a Wolfram site license, because people like front ends and things like that, and like the analytics side. Maybe we could start getting some people in the back ends of company, down at that server level, interested in using it. And kind of the caveat of this whole thing, I didn't get to show a lot of code because this process right now, one, is pretty fresh. Two, for me to be able to strip out all of our stuff, would have been a little bit much. But what could happen in the future is, if there's enough interest, there could be something we could create that maybe be just like a sample ETL type concept to people. That's it shows them just some complexity of extract, some complexity of transpose load, and then maybe a little bit of reporting. So if something that's very simplistic that a lot of people could start from, because as with anything in life, a lot of times just that sample project is all you need to get moving. Yeah. And so with this particular project, the fact that it didn't take me that long to get it up and running, having a sample small project for people to basically start their effort in with, boom, I think it would help. So great.
Right, yeah. So it seems like you managed to do something pretty impressive with not too much time, and something that is fairly in demand in the industry, like you said. So hopefully there's some folks out there who are watching this who might take the initiative and try it themselves. If not, maybe we'll have something in the near future that they can sort of go off of. So thanks for talking to us today.
No problem. Todd. Thank you.
Thanks for joining us. You can check out other Wolfram Tech Talks, live coding streams, and more on the Wolfram Research YouTube channel, or see what else is new at wolfram.com.